Black
dare you speak
CEO
to me
goes
like that? You
undercover at
listen
her
when I am
dealership
talking to you.
minutes.
I want you
Later,
removed from
she
this
cuts half
establishment
the team
immediately.
loose.
To a successful quarter.
Hello,
Cheers.
everyone.
Indeed.
Before we begin
Are you
today's
considering the
video,
silver or the
I
black
need your
model?
help.
I don't care
We've
what your screen
noticed
says.
that
This
the
level of
channel
service
is losing
completely unacceptable.
traction,
Ma'am, I assure
and
you we are handling
subscribing
this.
is
Please
one
calm
of the
down so we can
best
discuss the
ways you
solution.
can help
Who
us.
do you think you
It's
are?
quick,
I spend
free,
more money
and
here in a
allows us to
day than you
continue
make in a
bringing you
year.
great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Security, get her out. The words hit the air like a whip sharp, public, meant to bruise. The showroom fell silent except for the faint hum of LED lights reflecting off rows of polished luxury cars. Heads turned. Champagne glasses paused mid-air. Even the air seemed to stop, held in place by the force of that single command. At the center of the room, she stood completely still. A woman in a simple burgundy dress, hands at her sides, posture steady, so steady it made the chaos around her look sloppy. Her expression didn't flicker, didn't crack. Not even when the manager, pearls tight around her throat, marched up and jabbed a trembling finger inches from her face. I said, get her out. She has no business being here. Behind the manager, a uniformed security guard shifted like he'd been waiting all morning for someone to bully. Further back, 3 men in suits, sales executives, watched with open amusement, champagne flutes clinking softly as one of them whispered a joke that made the others break into smug, breathy laughter. To them, this wasn't an incident. It was entertainment. But the woman at the center didn't turn to look at any of them. She just breathed. Calm, controlled, unshakable. And that calm made the moment feel even louder. Before we continue, the narrator's voice slid in low and steady. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. The manager leaned in closer, lips tight with righteous fury. You can't afford anything here. You're wasting everyone's time. People like you don't walk into dealerships like this unless you're lost or lying. The security guard stepped forward, boots echoing across the marble like a verdict. Ma'am, we don't want any trouble. Please exit the showroom. Trouble. That word always found her. At 19, it found her when a clerk told her she looked too young to test drive a sedan. At 23, when a salesman refused to hand her keys because, we don't open these cars unless your husband is present. At 29, when she bought her first dealership and still had customers asking for someone in charge. And now, years later, standing in the dealership she secretly owned, the past returned in a single command meant to erase her. Security moved closer. The 3 executives behind them laughed louder. The manager's voice sharpened. Get her out. But the woman in burgundy didn't move, didn't blink, didn't bow, because she wasn't here to leave. She was here to watch them fail their own test. She hadn't planned to speak first. She wanted the room to expose itself before she said a single word. And in the minutes leading up to that explosion of security, get her out, it already had. She arrived quietly, no entourage, no clipboard, no badge declaring authority. Just a burgundy dress and a stillness that didn't fit the chaotic sales energy of a luxury dealership. She stepped through the glass doors like someone entering a library, not a showroom stacked with vehicles worth more than some homes. Her shoes barely made a sound on the marble, but people noticed her anyway, not the way you notice a VIP. The way you notice someone you assume shouldn't be here. 2 salesmen near the front desk clocked her instantly. One nudged the other with his elbow, snickering under his breath. Lost? Probably looking for service. Or the bus stop. They didn't bother hiding their smirks. The woman in burgundy didn't look at them. She kept moving, gaze, scanning each car the way someone who knew engines really knew engines would. She paused near a white coupe, fingertips hovering just above the polished hood without touching it. Her expression remained unreadable, but her breath paused just for a moment as if she recognized the craftsmanship beneath the paint. Behind her, the dealership director, the same woman who would later scream for security, watched from her office window with thin, disapproving eyes. To her, the customer's dress was too simple, her posture too calm, her presence too quiet. Quiet, in places like this, is always mistaken for weakness. The woman in burgundy approached a floor model on the raised platform, a flagship luxury sedan. The one most customers weren't allowed to sit in without an appointment. She stood before it, hands clasped, admiring the interior stitching through the window. There was no rush in her posture, no hesitation, just a soft, steady inhale. That alone irritated people. A young trainee, barely a month into the job, noticed her interest. He took 2 steps toward her before his supervisor yanked him back by the arm. Not her. Serious buyers wear serious clothes. But she's... Leave it. The trainee's eyes lingered on her. Something in him hesitated, like an instinct telling him the hierarchy in the room wasn't as simple as it looked. But the woman in burgundy didn't turn, didn't flinch. She was listening. To the footsteps behind her. To the whispers. To the snickers. To the assumptions. Every comment became another tally in her mental ledger, proof she didn't need to search for. Proof she expected to find. She circled the car once more with the calm of someone who had walked these floors before. Someone who'd trained sales teams. Someone who'd designed entire buying experiences brick by brick. Someone who'd built more dealerships than these men had ever worked in. But to everyone watching, she was just a woman in a dress. And that was exactly what she wanted them to think. Because the quieter she entered, the louder their downfall would sound. The tension began quietly, like a hairline crack running under glossy marble, but it spread fast. By the time she stepped away from the flagship sedan, the sales floor had already turned into a silent jury. Each person watching her formed their own verdict, long before anyone bothered to speak to her. That's how prejudice works here. Assumption first, service never. A tall salesman with slick hair and a suit a little too shiny was the first to approach. Not with a smile, not with a greeting. He simply positioned himself between her and the next car, blocking her path as if she were wandering someplace she didn't have clearance to see. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "this section is for serious buyers. Test drives require appointments, proof of income, approval from management." The emphasis on serious dripped like oil. He didn't even fake a grin. She met his stare. Slow, steady. "I didn't ask for a test drive." "Oh." He blinked, thrown off for a split second, long enough to reveal his irritation. "Well, we're busy today. Maybe check out something modest." His colleagues snorted, not even pretending to hide it now. Across the showroom, the dealership director finally emerged from her glass office, heels clicking like a metronome of authority. She approached with a glare that could sour milk. "I'm told you're disturbing the sales floor." Her tone wasn't questioning, it was sentencing. The woman in burgundy replied softly, "I was just looking." "Looking isn't free," the director snapped. "You can browse vehicles within your range in the pre-owned section. It's outside, to the left." Her range. There it was. The assumption made solid. Behind them, the security guard subtly repositioned himself closer, as if preparing for a situation that didn't exist. His posture wasn't protective, it was preemptive. The trainee who'd noticed her earlier stared from across the room, jaw tight. He wanted to say something. You could see the conflict play across his face, but one warning glance from the senior staff froze him in place. Meanwhile, the 3 executives from earlier now leaned on a high table, swirling champagne in crystal glasses, watching, smirking, betting on how quickly she'd be pushed out. Their laughter wasn't loud, but it traveled. The director stepped even closer, crowding her space. "You're making customers uncomfortable," she said. "If you keep hovering around these models, I will call security." The woman in burgundy didn't move. "I haven't touched anything. Your presence is enough." A few guests nearby shifted awkwardly, sensing the wrongness but unsure what to do. That's the thing about silent discrimination, people feel it long before they understand it. The crack under the marble grew wider. The director folded her arms. "I'll ask one more time, why are you here?" The woman in burgundy looked around the showroom, the gleaming lights, the polished cars, the eyes filled with judgment, and answered the question without raising her voice. "I'm here," she said calmly, "to see how this dealership treats its customers." And with that, the room held its breath. Because everyone knew the truth. They'd already failed. The silence that followed her answer wasn't peaceful. It was dangerous, like the moment before glass shatters. The director clearly didn't expect her to speak with that kind of calm, and the crack in her expression showed it. She opened her mouth to respond, but another voice cut in, not loud, not bold, but trembling with the kind of honesty that doesn't ask for permission. Miss Carter?" The room turned, slowly, like a sensor detecting movement. The trainee stood near the tablet kiosk, hands shaking slightly as he held the device against his chest. His name tag, Evan, tilted sideways, like even it wasn't ready to be noticed today. He swallowed once, then again, gathering courage. The director's eyes widened. Evan, don't. But it was too late. Something in him had already awakened. I checked the system earlier, he said, voice cracking but clear. Her name is there. She's on today's priority list. A.A. Carter, flagged as VIP. Ugh. A murmur rippled through the room, clients whispering, salesmen stiffening, the executive's smirks faltering. The director shot forward, snatching the tablet from his hands so aggressively the device beeped in protest. You misunderstood the system, she hissed. The VIP list is internal, for staff, for partners, not customers. Evans stood his ground barely, but he didn't step back. No, that's not true. Priority clients have their initials logged and time-stamped. She's in the system twice. Twice. The executives exchanged glances. Even the security guard's posture changed, suddenly less sure of his orders. The woman in burgundy didn't move, didn't rescue him, didn't speak. She wanted to see how far truth could travel when spoken by someone who had nothing to gain. Evan took one slow breath. I think we're making a mistake. The director snapped. That's enough. You're a trainee. You don't understand how this works. He did, though. He understood exactly how it worked. He'd seen customers like her turned away all month. He'd seen who was offered champagne and who was offered the exit. And today, something in him refused to stay quiet. He looked at the woman in burgundy, really looked at her, and said the words that changed the air. She deserves to be here. The director slammed a hand on the desk. Security. The guard stepped forward again, but this time his hesitation was visible. Evan's trembling voice had fractured the narrative, and everyone felt it. For the first time since she entered, the woman in burgundy blinked. Not in fear, in acknowledgement. A witness had awakened, and the room no longer belonged solely to the people who thought they held power. The director didn't just lose patience, she lost control. Enough of this, she barked, her voice slicing through the showroom like a kicked door. I don't care what the trainee thinks. I want her out. Now. And she jabbed a finger toward the woman in burgundy so hard her bracelet clicked against her wrist. The security guard flinched at the volume, but he stepped forward anyway, compelled by authority he didn't fully believe in. Ma'am, he said firmer this time, I'm going to have to escort you out. Escort. The word landed with the weight of a blade. The executives in the back exchanged knowing smirks. One raised his glass in a mock toast. This should be good, he muttered. The director leaned closer, voice dripping with disdain. You've already wasted enough of everyone's time. We don't need thieves, liars, or opportunists lurking around our vehicles. That last word, lurking, left her mouth like poison, meant to sting. A few customers gasped. One woman looked away, uncomfortable. One man shifted uneasily, sensing the wrongness but doing nothing. The woman in burgundy still hadn't moved. She stood as if rooted to the floor, unshaken, unbothered, unreadable. But inside her, a memory flickered. A flash of a younger her, maybe 19, standing in another dealership, wearing her best clothes because she thought professional would protect her. A salesman had looked her up and down and said, You're making the real customers nervous. She remembered the sting of humiliation as she stepped back onto the sidewalk, pretending she wasn't choking on her own breath. She remembered whispering to herself, One day, I'll build a place where they can't push me out. The memory faded. The present sharpened. Now, a different security guard loomed over her. A different director hurled the same accusations. Different men laughed from the sidelines. Only one thing was the same. They still thought she didn't belong. The director snapped her fingers. Get her purse. Get her off the property. I want her gone. Security reached toward her arm. His hand hovered inches from her sleeve. Customers froze. Evan, the trainee, took a shaky step forward. Wait, she didn't do anything. Stay out of this, the director yelled without even looking at him. Her voice echoed across the polished floors, bouncing between glass displays and chrome bumpers until it felt like the whole building was vibrating with hostility. Security moved closer. And finally, the woman in burgundy lifted her chin. Not high, not dramatically, just enough to make the room still. Her eyes locked on the guard's hand, then on the director, then on the executives watching like spectators at a sport they believed they owned. She didn't raise her voice, but when she spoke, the room felt it. Touch me, she said softly, and you'll regret it more than you can imagine. Not a threat, a prophecy. And everyone felt the shift. The guard's hand froze midair, not because he understood who she was, he didn't, but because something in her tone, in that calm warning, sliced through the adrenaline of the room. It was the kind of calm only people with nothing to fear ever carry. The director scoffed, mistaking that stillness for bluff. "Oh, please, spare me the dramatics. You don't scare anyone here." She waved the guard forward again. "Do your job." But he hesitated just long enough for the woman in burgundy to slip one hand into her purse and pull out her phone. No rush, no theatrics, just a deliberate, controlled motion that made every whisper in the room vanish. She pressed a single button, then lifted the phone to her ear. "Nia," she said quietly, "initiate Dealer Protocol 7. The director blinked. "Dealer what?" On the other end of the call, her assistant's voice came through crisp, professional, ready. "Protocol 7 is live. I'm flagging all staff interactions, activating compliance monitoring, and locking transaction logs for audit. Do you want full visibility pushed to your dashboard?" "Yes," the woman replied. "Real time." The director's face drained of color. What are you talking about? What system are you accessing?" The three executives stopped laughing. One lowered his champagne glass. Another pulled out his phone, suddenly nervous. Their eyes darted between each other, silently asking the same question. "Who is she?" Across the room, Evan the trainee watched with wide, unblinking eyes. He knew that tone. He'd only heard it once before, when a regional vice president visited. It was the sound of power speaking softly. Nia's voice continued over the phone. "I've also notified internal audit and pinged legal. They're reviewing the harassment footage now." Harassment. The word hit the showroom harder than any shout. "Turn that off," the director snapped. "You can't record us. You can't access any system here. This is private property." The woman in burgundy didn't even look at her. She walked slowly, gracefully to the center of the showroom floor, heels echoing through a silence so sharp it felt like glass. Everyone watched her. Everyone felt the shift. Even the security guard stepped back, uneasy now. She stopped beneath the brightest overhead light, the gleam on the marble forming a soft halo around her. Then she spoke not to the director, not to the guard, but to Nia. "Begin staff verification." "Yes, ma'am," Nia replied. "Cross-checking names now." "As it." The director snapped her head up. "Ma'am? Who are you talking to?" But no one answered her. Her authority, once loud, once unquestioned, was evaporating in real time. Behind her, one executive muttered, voice cracking, "Oh God, Carter. Carter, is that?" The woman in burgundy lifted her gaze, eyes steady enough to quiet the entire room. The turn had begun. Power, not loud, not explosive, was unfolding like a blade unsheathed in perfect silence. And for the first time since she walked through those doors, they were the ones who looked like they didn't belong. The room felt suspended like gravity itself, paused to see what she would say next. The director tried to recover her slipping authority, voice shaking beneath a thin coat of bravado. "You can't just activate systems here. You don't have access. You don't have clearance. You don't even—" She didn't get to finish. Because at that moment, every screen in the showroom, tablets, wall displays, sales terminals blinked. A soft chime echoed through the space. Then another. Then another. The dealership's internal dashboard lit up across all devices. Account override A. Carter owner level access confirmed. A gasp cut through the air. Someone whispered, "Owner? Did that say owner?" One of the executives staggered forward like his knees forgot how to hold him. The director spun around toward the nearest monitor, face draining to ash. "That's impossible. This system doesn't, it can't," but it had. Her own computer screen glowed with the same message. The same name. "Ah, Carter." She turned back slowly, as if her bones were made of glass. You hacked us." Finally, the woman in burgundy looked directly at her. "I don't need to hack a system I built," she said softly. The line didn't echo, but the silence afterward did. The executives froze. The security guard stepped back 2 full paces. Even customers stopped pretending to browse and simply stared. Evan the trainee looked like someone had just opened the sky. The director shook her head, her voice barely holding itself together. "You're lying. If you were really who you say you are—" "I haven't said who I am," the woman replied, stepping closer, "because I wanted to hear who you thought I was." She stopped 1 foot away, close enough that the director couldn't look away. "You called me a liar," the woman continued. "You called me a thief. You tried to have me removed. A beat. And all while standing in a building I own." Her voice never rose. It didn't need to. "This dealership," she said, gesturing around her, is one of 12 under Carter Automotive Group, my group. My signature is on every employee contract, including yours. The director's breath hitched, her posture collapsing in on itself. The woman in burgundy delivered the final blow with the quiet precision of a judge passing sentence. You called me a fraud, in my own dealership. The room erupted not in noise, but in realization. Phones lifted. Whispers spread. The executives' faces went ghost white. Security lowered his hands entirely. Evan exhaled like he had been holding his breath for an hour. The director could only whisper one broken word. No, but the truth had already landed. The reveal was complete. The director didn't collapse all at once. She unraveled thread by thread right in front of everyone. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted from the glowing screens, to the woman in burgundy, to the frozen executives behind her, then back again, as if the truth might change if she looked fast enough. But the truth wasn't moving. Nia's voice came through the phone, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Owner-level access confirmed. Compliance audit running. Staff conduct logs uploading now. Each sentence hit the director like another shove toward the edge. No, she whispered again. This can't be happening. Behind her, one of the executives finally found his voice. Oh my God, he murmured, hands sliding down his face. We just humiliated the owner. The other two executives backed away from their high table, champagne glasses trembling between their fingers. The confidence, the smirks, the jokes, every ounce of arrogance drained from their bodies like water through cracked stone. Security was the next to break. He stepped away so fast it looked like someone had yanked him backward by the collar. Ma'am, I didn't know, he stammered. I was just doing what the director told me. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes remained locked on the woman she had tried to expel. Evan, the trainee, stepped forward cautiously. I'm so sorry, he said, voice trembling but sincere. He wasn't apologizing for the director. He was apologizing for the room, for the whole system. The woman in burgundy nodded once in acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Nia's voice chimed again through the phone. Ma'am, legal has flagged 3 major breaches from management: discriminatory conduct, customer harassment, and attempted removal of a verified client. Do you want me to proceed with disciplinary action? The director's entire body jolted. No, wait. You can't. We can fix this. I didn't know who you were. The woman in burgundy finally turned to face her fully. And when she spoke, it was gentle, almost kind. Almost. That's the problem, she said. You treat people based on who you think they are, not who they are. A customer near the SUV display whispered, Wow. Another woman crossed her arms, nodding slowly. Phones were everywhere now, every angle captured. The showroom had become a courtroom, and the verdict was playing out live. The woman in burgundy lifted her phone slightly. Nia, she said, freeze the director's access, effective immediately. A sharp, echoing beep sounded from the director's tablet. Then her computer. Then the front desk terminal. Then the door to her own office clicked, locking itself. Her badge flashed assesses denied in bright red. She staggered back, catching herself on a display stand. No, please, let's talk about this. But the collapse wasn't finished. Nia, the woman continued, suspend the executive team as well. All 3. Another series of terminal beeps cascaded across the room like falling dominoes. The executives looked at each other in horror. Evan flinched at the sound, but he didn't look away. This wasn't chaos. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, quiet, swift, inevitable, and the dealership had never felt more awake. The collapse left a ringing silence, one so complete, even the air felt like it was holding its breath. Every screen in the dealership still glowed with red access warnings. Every employee stood frozen in place, and in the center of it all, she remained perfectly composed, not triumphant, not emotional, just steady. Like this outcome was never in question. The director stood with her back pressed against a display pedestal, eyes swollen with disbelief. The 3 suspended executives hovered nearby, pale and breathless, clutching their disabled badges as if they might magically revive. Security kept his distance now farther than necessary. Customers watched openly, no longer pretending to browse. Phones were raised, but recording had shifted from drama to awe. And still, she stood in that burgundy dress, her posture calm, her breathing unshaken. The quietest person in the room and somehow the one filling every inch of it. Nia's voice came through one last time. All suspensions complete. Compliance requests filed. Legal has acknowledged receipt. Do you require anything else? She lowered the phone slightly, not hanging up, but letting the room hear her answer. No, Nia, that's enough. Oh. Her eyes lifted, sweeping across the floor, first the guard, then the executives, then the director, then the customers who had witnessed everything. Her voice was soft, but the room leaned in as if gravity pulled them toward it. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. The director flinched. I came undercover to see how this team treats the people who walk through those doors. Not the wealthy, not the VIPs, not the ones wearing suits. Her gaze sharpened. Everyone. A hush fell over the crowd, heavy, reverent. I built this company so people could walk into a dealership without being judged by their skin, their clothes, or their silence. I built it so customers could feel seen, not policed, not profiled, not dismissed. She stepped closer to the director, close enough for the woman to see the quiet disappointment in her eyes. And today, she said gently, you showed me exactly why this work isn't finished. The director's lip trembled. I didn't know. That, the woman replied, is exactly why you're being removed. A single tear slipped down the director's cheek. Not sorrow, recognition. The woman in burgundy turned away, giving her the dignity of not being stared at as she broke. She stepped toward the trainee instead, Evan, who stood with both hands clasped behind him, unsure if he was allowed to breathe. Evan, she said softly. He straightened like a soldier. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. His eyes widened. For what? For remembering that customers are humans first. The praise nearly buckled his knees. Then she faced the room one final time. Her posture tall, her voice calm, her presence undeniable. I didn't raise my voice today, she said. I didn't need to. A beat, the kind of pause that belongs in trailers and history books. I raised the standard. Silence. Then, as if pulled by a single thread, customers began to clap, slow at first, then steady, then overwhelming. Not for power, not for wealth, but for the dignity she carried like armor. And as the applause filled the dealership she owned, the woman in burgundy finally turned toward the exit, walking with the same quiet grace she arrived with. But now, the whole room followed her with their eyes. Not in judgment, in respect. The doors whispered shut behind her, but the energy she left behind didn't fade, it detonated. Inside the dealership, the silence cracked open all at once. The director finally slid down against the pedestal, breath shallow, hands trembling as her badge blinked red on the floor beside her. The three executives huddled together in shock, their bravado dissolved into frantic whispers. How long has she owned us? Since the merger, idiot, since last year. We're finished. Security stood frozen near the entrance, staring at the spot where she'd been standing minutes ago, sweat gathering at his collar. The reality of what almost happened replayed in his mind like a warning he'd barely escaped. But Evan the trainee looked different from all of them. He stood tall, shoulders back, eyes bright with something the others didn't have. Pride. He had done one thing no one else dared to do, he spoke up. And it mattered. It changed everything. Across the showroom, customers put their phones down slowly, exchanging looks that said more than any comment section could. Imagine treating the owner like that. She handled it better than anyone I've ever seen. That wasn't a meltdown. That was leadership. The dealership's doors opened automatically as she stepped into the sunlight outside. The air felt cooler here, cleaner. She inhaled once, letting the tension of the room fall from her shoulders like dust shaken from a coat. Her phone buzzed. Nia's voice came through, steady and warm now that the crisis had passed. Ma'am, corporate has acknowledged everything. They're preparing statements for press, but they want to hear your preference first. She paused at the curb, the sunlight catching the burgundy fabric of her dress. No press, she said. No headlines. Let the audit speak. Let the footage speak. Let the truth speak. A cat beat. Then, I don't need to humiliate anyone, just replace them. Nia exhaled, a sound of respect. Yes, ma'am. I'll start selection for interim leadership. And Evan the trainee, you were right. He's being recommended for promotion. A small smile touched her lips. Good. Integrity should rise. She ended the call. For a moment, she simply stood there alone, unguarded, at peace. The chaos inside the building was behind her, and the future she was building stretched ahead like an open road. Justice, she knew, didn't need to roar. It only needed someone willing to stand still long enough for the truth to catch up. She stepped forward, sunlight at her back. The next chapter was already waiting. By the next morning, the dealership felt like a different building entirely. Not looter, not cleaner, not busier, just lighter. The staff arrived in waves, expecting another routine day until they saw the notices posted on every glass door. Effective immediately, leadership transition in progress. A mandatory conduct review at 10 amperes. Owner on site. Prepare for full reset. Whispers spread fast, carrying equal parts panic and curiosity. What happened yesterday? Why is corporate here? Who triggered an audit overnight? Inside the conference room, HR teams and compliance officers unpacked laptops like surgeons prepping an operating table. The atmosphere wasn't hostile, it was surgical, intentional, precise. And then she walked in. The woman in burgundy was replaced today by a tailored charcoal suit, quiet, sharp, unmistakably authoritative. Her presence carried none of the weight from the day before. She looked lighter too, clearer, as if the mask of undercover customer had been shed, and all that remained was the truth of who she was. Every head turned, every whisper stopped, every guilty conscience throbbed. She didn't sit. She didn't greet. She began. This dealership, she said, voice calm, is supposed to be the model for our entire automotive group. A place customers trust, a place employees grow, a place where people are treated with dignity. A few staff members shifted nervously. They knew what was coming. Yesterday, she continued, I didn't see that. She let the words land not like a hammer, but like a mirror. I saw discrimination. I saw arrogance. I saw fear masquerading as authority. But I also saw integrity. I saw courage. And I saw exactly where the future of this place should come from. Eyes drifted toward Evan, who sat near the back, trying to shrink into his chair. She gestured toward him. That young man remembered why we exist, to serve every customer who walks in, not judge them. The room turned to look. Evan's ears flushed red. In the coming days, she said, we will restructure leadership, rewrite training protocols, and rebuild the culture from the ground up. Integrity won't be optional. Respect won't be optional. Empathy won't be optional. Her voice sharpened, not loud, but final. Standards are changing today. There was no applause, no celebration, just the heavy, humbling stillness of a team realizing their world had shifted. A new standard had arrived, and she was the one setting it. The dealership didn't just transform over the next weeks. It evolved. Slowly at first. Then all at once. After the leadership purge and the cultural reset, something remarkable began to happen. The tension that once hung over the showroom like invisible fog evaporated, replaced by a calm confidence neither forced nor fragile. Customers walked in and weren't immediately filtered, judged, or measured against silent biases. Instead, they were greeted. Not just acknowledged, welcomed. Evan, now promoted to customer experience lead, became the quiet compass of the floor. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. But every employee from new hires to seasoned sales veterans mirrored the same posture he had shown that first day. Respect first, assumptions never. Corporate began sending other dealerships to observe the transformation. Not because of the scandal, but because of the recovery. How did you turn this around? They asked her in meetings, taking furious notes. She never took credit. It wasn't me, she'd say. It was the truth finally being allowed to breathe. But the truth was this. It was her. Her silence. Her resolve. Her refusal to exchange dignity for rage. Word spread far beyond the automotive world. Articles surfaced not sensational ones, but thoughtful pieces on leadership, unconscious bias, the power of undercover evaluations. Business schools reached out for case studies. HR conferences wanted her to speak. She declined most invitations, not because she feared the spotlight, but because she preferred building quietly. One evening, 3 months after the incident, she returned to the dealership again. Not undercover this time, not in burgundy, just herself. The sunset cast long golden shadows across the floor as she walked between the cars, the air filled with the gentle hum of evening closing procedures. Employees nodded respectfully as she passed. Not out of fear, not out of obligation, out of understanding. Evan spotted her and hurried over, a bit breathless. "Ma'am, sorry, I didn't know you were coming in tonight. I didn't want anyone to," she said with a small smile. "I just wanted to see how things feel now." He hesitated, then asked quietly, "Do they feel right to you?" She looked around the warm lighting, the comfortable conversations, the absence of tension lurking beneath the surface. A customer laughed with a salesman near the SUV display. Another customer was being guided through financing without condescension or coldness. It didn't feel perfect. Nothing ever does, but it felt honest. She nodded. They do. Evan exhaled, shoulders releasing a weight he'd been carrying since that first chaotic day. Before she turned to leave, she added, "You're doing well in your role. Better than well. Keep leading from where you stand." He didn't know what to say. "Thank you," he managed, "for trusting me." "I didn't trust you," she replied gently. "I trusted what you chose to do when no one was watching." He swallowed hard, eyes shining. As she stepped outside into the soft evening air, her assistant called with updates, corporate growth projections, new partnership proposals, expansion plans, big things. But she let the phone ring once, twice, 3 times before answering. She watched the sky shift from orange to indigo. This dealership had been just one test. One building. One moment where the world had shown its cracks. But the legacy wasn't the firing. It wasn't the humiliation of those who wronged her. It wasn't even the power she revealed. It was the standard she left standing behind her. A standard that would outlive her presence, outgrow the walls of a single showroom, and outshine the arrogance that once tried to push her out. Justice hadn't needed her rage. It needed her anchor. And she had given it quietly, decisively, completely. As the automatic doors closed behind her, the new era she created kept moving forward, one respectful interaction at a time.